I was standing in my own living room, packing my belongings into cardboard boxes while my parents watched with cold determination. My father, Frank, cleared his throat and said the words that would haunt me forever. "It is time for you to move on, Scarlett. Amber needs this place more than you do." I looked around at the 3-bedroom townhouse I had saved $80,000 to buy the mortgage I had been paying for 3 years and realized my own family was forcing me out of my home to give it to my younger sister who had never paid a single bill. Before I tell you how I made them regret every single word, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from and hit that like button if you have ever been the responsible child who got punished for it. Subscribe, because what happened next will make you believe in instant karma. Let me take you back to the beginning so you understand how this nightmare started. I have been the responsible daughter my entire life. While my younger sister Amber was partying through high school and dropping out of college twice, I was working my way through business school and building a career as a senior financial advisor at a prestigious investment firm. By the time I turned 24, I was earning a steady 6-figure income and had already started saving for my own home. My sister Amber, on the other hand, has been what you might call the golden child who could never do wrong in my parents' eyes. At 28, she had a trail of failed jobs, broken relationships, and financial disasters that my parents, Frank and Carol, always swooped in to fix. When she got pregnant at 23 with a man who disappeared the moment he heard the news my parents helped raise her daughter Emma, while making excuses about how Amber was finding herself as a single mother. The family dynamic had always been clear. I was expected to be strong and independent, while Amber was treated like she needed constant protection and support. When I graduated college debt-free and got promoted to senior advisor, my parents were proud, but immediately started suggesting ways I could help the family with my success. When Amber lost her retail job for the 3rd time, they expected me to lend her money. When her car got repossessed, they hinted that I should co-sign for a new one. But my biggest accomplishment came when I turned 29 and bought my own 3-bedroom townhouse in one of the best neighborhoods in the city. I had saved every penny of that $80,000 down payment through 5 years of careful budgeting and sacrifice. The mortgage payments were mine, the property taxes were mine, and every single utility bill came in my name. This house represented everything I had worked for: independent stability and proof that hard work pays off. Initially, my parents were proud of my achievement. They bragged to their friends about their daughter who owned her own home at such a young age. But it did not take long before the comments started. "This house is so big for just one person," my mother would say during visits. "Amber and Emma could really use some extra space," my father would add meaningfully. The situation reached a turning point 6 months ago when Amber went through a messy divorce from her husband of 2 years. The marriage had been doomed from the start, with Amber's husband tired of her refusal to hold steady employment and her tendency to create drama wherever she went. When the divorce was finalized, Amber was left with minimal alimony and no place to live that she could afford on her spotty income. That is when my parents approached me with what they called a temporary solution. Could Amber and 5-year-old Emma stay with me for just 3 months while Amber got back on her feet? As the aunt who genuinely loved Emma and wanted her to have stability, I agreed to what I thought was a short-term arrangement to help family during a difficult time. The red flags started immediately. Amber moved in with more belongings than someone planning a 3-month stay would need. She redecorated the guest room and converted my home office into Emma's playroom without asking permission. When I mentioned that I needed my office space for work, Amber responded that Emma needed a place to feel at home and that I could work from the kitchen table like everyone else. Within weeks, Amber was bringing new boyfriends to my house, hosting parties in my living room, and treating the place like it belonged to her. When I tried to discuss boundaries, she would cry and say I was being unwelcoming to family, and that Emma was finally feeling stable for the first time since the divorce. 3 months turned into 5, then 6, then 8 months of Amber treating my home like her personal domain. The temporary arrangement had become a permanent takeover, and every attempt I made to address the situation was met with manipulation and family pressure. My utility bills had doubled with 3 additional people in the house, but Amber contributed nothing toward expenses. Her latest boyfriend, Marcus, had essentially moved in as well, making it 4 extra people living in my house without my consent. The breaking point came when I attempted to have an honest conversation with Amber about her plans to move out. I found her in what used to be my home office, now completely transformed into Emma's playroom with expensive toys and furniture I had never seen before. "Amber, we need to discuss your timeline for finding your own place," I said as gently as possible. "It has been 8 months, and I think it is time to start making concrete plans." Her response shocked me. "Emma loves it here, Scarlett. You are being incredibly selfish, wanting us to leave when you have this whole big house to yourself. We barely take up any space, and Emma finally has the stable home environment she deserves after everything she has been through. This is my house, Amber. I bought it, I pay for it, and I've been more than generous letting you stay this long rent-free." "God, you are so materialistic," she snapped. "Family should come first, but all you care about is your precious house. If you kick us out, you are breaking up this family and traumatizing a 5-year-old child." The argument escalated quickly, with Amber threatening to tell our parents how heartless I was being and how I was choosing money over family. That evening, I received angry phone calls from both my mother and father demanding that I reconsider my selfish decision to ask Amber to leave. The next week, my parents called a family meeting at my house. I should have known something was wrong when they arrived with serious expressions and a folder full of papers. My father, Frank, sat at my own dining room table and delivered what he called the family decision. "Scarlett, you have always been blessed with more than enough," he began. "Amber and Emma need stability, and this house has become their home. We think it would be best for everyone if you found yourself a nice apartment and let them stay here where Emma is settled and happy." I stared at them in disbelief. "Are you seriously asking me to move out of the house I bought and paid for so that Amber can live here?" My mother, Carol, leaned forward with what she probably thought was a sympathetic expression. "Honey, you are single and successful. You can live anywhere and be fine. Amber has been through so much with the divorce, and Emma needs the consistency. Think about what is best for the family as a whole." "What about what is best for me?" I asked, my voice rising. "This is my home. I saved for years to buy it. I pay the mortgage, the insurance, the taxes, everything. You are asking me to give up everything I have worked for." "We will help you find a lovely apartment," Frank said dismissively. "One-bedroom places are much more affordable anyway. This house should stay with the family that really needs it. Amber has been making this place a real home for Emma, and it would be cruel to disrupt that now." That was when I realized this conversation had been planned for months. They were not asking for my opinion. They were informing me of a decision they had already made. The temporary arrangement had always been a lie, a way to get Amber settled in my house so they could pressure me to leave permanently. But the real devastation came later that evening when I overheard a phone conversation between Amber and one of her friends. I was in my bedroom when I heard her voice clearly through the thin walls. "Mom and Dad convinced her this was temporary, but they have been working on making it permanent for months," Amber was saying, laughing. "She is so gullible, By the time she realizes what is happening, we will have established tenant rights, and she will not be able to do anything about it. Marcus thinks we should start making mortgage payments directly to the bank and force her out completely." I quietly moved closer to the door and continued listening to the conversation that would change everything. "The best part is that she actually believes we care about family loyalty," Amber continued. "I never intended to leave this house. Why would I go back to some crappy apartment when I can live in a nice neighborhood for free? Mom always said Scarlett had too much anyway, and now she gets to learn what it feels like to not have everything handed to her." In that moment, I understood that everything had been a carefully orchestrated plan. The temporary stay, the family pressure, the guilt about Emma's stability, all of it had been designed to manipulate me into giving up my home. I spent the night researching tenant rights and discovered that Amber was right about one thing. After 8 months of residence, she could potentially claim tenant protections that would make evicting her a lengthy and expensive legal process. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove straight to the office of Jennifer Walsh, a real estate attorney whose firm specialized in property disputes. I needed to understand exactly what legal options I had and how to protect the home I had worked so hard to afford. "Tell me about the living arrangement," Jennifer said, as she reviewed the documents I had brought: my mortgage papers, property deed, and insurance policies. "There was never any formal lease agreement," I explained. "She has never paid rent, utilities, or contributed to any household expenses. It was supposed to be temporary family help, but now they are trying to force me to leave my own house." Jennifer studied the documents carefully before looking up with a slight smile. "Ms. Williams, you are in a much stronger position than you realize. Without a lease agreement, without any payment of rent, and without your written consent to permanent residence, your sister is not a legal tenant. She is what we would classify as a trespasser who has overstayed your hospitality. But she has been living there for 8 months. Does not that give her some rights? Not when she gained access through deception and is occupying the property against the owner's wishes. You have every legal right to remove unauthorized occupants from your property immediately." That afternoon, I took the first step in reclaiming my life. I documented everything: photographs of the damage Amber had done to my home, copies of utility bills showing the increased costs I had been absorbing, and most importantly, I transferred the recording of that family meeting to my phone, where my parents explicitly stated they wanted me out of my own house. My first move was strategic and immediate. As the sole account holder for all utilities, I contacted the electric company, gas company, water department, and internet provider to discontinue service to my address, effective in 48 hours. When Amber called me at work, screaming about the power being shut off, I calmly explained that I would no longer be subsidizing utilities for people who did not respect my property. "You cannot do this," she shrieked into the phone. "Emma needs electricity for her nebulizer machine. You are putting a child's health at risk." "Then I suggest you establish utility service in your own name and pay your own bills," I replied. "Or better yet, find your own place to live where you are responsible for your own expenses." The next step was legal and official. Jennifer helped me prepare a 72-hour notice to vacate that was served by the sheriff's department on a Tuesday morning. The document clearly stated that Amber, Emma, and Marcus were unauthorized occupants of private property and had 72 hours to remove themselves and all belongings or face legal consequences for trespassing. When my parents received copies of the eviction notice, they called me immediately with threats and ultimatums. "If you go through with this, we will never speak to you again," my father shouted into the phone. "You are destroying this family over a house. "You already destroyed this family when you decided to steal my home," I replied calmly. "But since you brought up family, let me play something for you." I played back the recording of our family meeting where they had demanded I move out of my own house. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening as they heard their own words condemning them as conspirators in Amber's scheme to steal my property. "We were just trying to help Amber," my mother said weakly. "By forcing me to sacrifice everything I worked for, that is not help, Mom. That is theft with family guilt as the weapon." While they were still processing the legal implications of what they had done, I took the final step that would secure my home. I hired a locksmith to change every lock on the property while Amber was at her part-time job and Emma was at school. I also installed a comprehensive security system with cameras covering all entry points and motion sensors throughout the house. When Amber returned that evening, she found all of her belongings stacked neatly on the front lawn with a tarp covering them in case of rain. Marcus arrived shortly after to find the locks changed and a security system sticker prominently displayed on the front door. The dramatic scene that unfolded brought several neighbors out to watch as Amber screamed and pounded on the door, demanding to be let into her home. When she attempted to break in through a back window, the alarm system immediately alerted both the security company and local police. Officer Martinez arrived to find Amber trying to force open a window while Marcus kicked at the back door. After reviewing the eviction notice and my property ownership documents, he cited them both for attempted breaking and entering and informed them that any further contact with the property would result in arrest for trespassing. "But this is my sister's house," Amber protested. "She cannot just throw us out." "Ma'am, your sister is the legal owner of this property and has served you with a valid notice to vacate," Officer Martinez explained patiently. "You have no legal right to be on this property, and any attempt to enter will result in criminal charges." The consequences of my decision unfolded quickly and dramatically. Amber, having nowhere else to go with Emma and no money for a security deposit on a new place, was forced to move back in with our parents. Their small 2-bedroom apartment became severely overcrowded with the addition of 3 people and all of Amber's belongings. Within a week, I began receiving frantic phone calls from my mother about how impossible the living situation had become. "There is not enough space for everyone," she complained. "Emma does not have her own room, and Amber's things are everywhere. You have to let them come back." "That is not my problem anymore," I replied firmly. "You chose Amber's comfort over my rights, so now you get to deal with the consequences of that choice." The financial strain on my parents was immediate and severe. They were suddenly responsible for feeding 3 additional people, covering Emma's school supplies and activities, and dealing with Amber's complete lack of contribution to household expenses. My father, who had been looking forward to retirement in 2 years, was forced to pick up additional consulting work to cover the increased costs. Meanwhile, Amber's attempts to find new housing were complicated by her recent citation for attempted breaking and entering. Landlords were reluctant to rent to someone with fresh legal troubles, especially someone with no steady income or rental history. Her part-time retail job barely covered her personal expenses, let alone rent and utilities for a place large enough for her and Emma. The social consequences were equally devastating. In her desperation, Amber took to Facebook to post a sob story about how her heartless sister had thrown out a single mother and child. She painted herself as a victim of family cruelty and me as a greedy property owner who cared more about money than blood relatives. But I was prepared for this attack. I responded to her public post with receipts, photos of my mortgage documents, proving I was the sole owner, copies of utility bills, showing I had paid everything while she contributed nothing, and most damaging of all, the audio recording of my parents demanding that I move out of my own house. The response from extended family and mutual friends was swift and decisive. Aunt Margaret, my father's sister, called me within hours of hearing the recording. "I always wondered how Amber could afford such a nice house," she said. "Now I understand what really happened. Your parents should be ashamed of themselves for trying to steal your home." Uncle Tom, my mother's brother, was even more direct in his assessment. "Your parents created this monster by never making Amber responsible for anything," he told me. "Maybe being homeless for a while will teach her some life skills they failed to instill." One by one, family members who had initially been sympathetic to Amber's social media sob story learned the truth and shifted their support to me. The narrative changed from heartless sister throws out single mother to responsible daughter fights back against family theft. The legal troubles continued to mount for Amber when Marcus, frustrated by the failed housing situation, made threatening phone calls to my workplace. I was forced to file for a restraining order when he showed up at my office, demanding that I fix this situation and making vague threats about what would happen if I did not. The restraining order hearing provided an opportunity to present all evidence of the coordinated scheme to steal my property. The judge was particularly disturbed by the recording of my parents demanding I vacate my own home, and granted a comprehensive restraining order that prohibited Marcus from any contact with me or my property. 6 months after reclaiming my home, I received a tearful phone call from my mother. "We made a terrible mistake," she sobbed into the phone. "This living situation is destroying our health, our marriage, and our retirement plans. Frank had a heart attack scare last month from all the financial stress. I am sorry to hear about Dad's health," I said sincerely. "But the stress you are experiencing now is exactly what you tried to force on me when you demanded I give up my home. We thought we were helping Amber become independent," she continued. "We did not realize we were just enabling her to avoid responsibility again. Can you forgive us?" The healing process was gradual and required concrete acknowledgement of what had been done to me. "I need to hear you say exactly what you did wrong," I told her. "I need you to acknowledge that trying to force me out of my own home was theft, not family help." The conversation that followed was painful but necessary. My mother admitted that they had planned for months to convince me to leave, that they had known Amber never intended the arrangement to be temporary, and that they had prioritized Amber's comfort over my rights as a property owner. My father's admission came in a separate conversation after his health scare forced him to confront the consequences of their choices. "I was wrong to ask you to sacrifice your security for Amber's convenience," he said quietly. "I see now that we were not helping her by enabling this behavior. We were teaching her that she could take what belonged to others and call it family loyalty." 2 years have passed since I reclaimed my home, and the transformation in my family dynamics has been profound. The immediate aftermath required professional cleaning services and $3,000 in repairs to fix the damage caused during Amber's 8-month occupation. Carpets needed replacement, walls required repainting, and deep cleaning was necessary to remove the residue of her chaotic lifestyle. But the emotional healing was more complex than the physical restoration. For months after the eviction, I struggled with guilt about Emma's situation and wondered if I had been too harsh in my response. Therapy sessions with Dr. Sarah Chen helped me understand that enabling Amber's irresponsible behavior was not actually helping Emma in the long term. Children need to see healthy boundaries modeled, Dr. Chen explained during one session. By allowing yourself to be manipulated and taken advantage of, you were teaching Emma that family relationships are based on power and guilt rather than mutual respect and responsibility. The insight was liberating. I realized that my decision to reclaim my home had actually provided Emma with a valuable lesson about consequences and personal responsibility that she had never received from the adults in her life who consistently rescued her mother from difficult situations. 6 months after the eviction, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I established a college fund for Emma that was completely separate from any assistance to Amber. The account was structured so that Amber could never access the money, but Emma would have educational opportunities regardless of her mother's financial choices. When I told my Aunt Margaret about the college fund, she smiled knowingly. "You are ensuring that Emma has chances in life that do not depend on her mother's ability to manipulate family members," she said. "That is real love and real help." The professional benefits of learning to set firm boundaries extended far beyond my family situation. Colleagues at the investment firm began approaching me for advice about difficult client situations, recognizing that I had developed skills in standing firm under pressure. My confidence in negotiating deals improved dramatically, leading to a promotion to senior partner within 18 months of the family crisis. My parents' transformation was perhaps the most dramatic change of all. Forced to confront the financial and emotional costs of enabling Amber's behavior, they began attending family therapy sessions to understand how their parenting choices had created the situation. The therapist helped them see that their pattern of rescuing Amber from consequences had prevented her from developing essential life skills. "We thought we were being loving parents by always helping her," my mother explained during one of our reconciliation conversations. "But we see now that we were actually being selfish. It was easier for us to fix her problems than to watch her struggle and learn from her mistakes." The overcrowded apartment situation lasted 8 months before my parents were forced to give Amber an ultimatum: find stable employment and contribute to household expenses or find somewhere else to live. For the first time in her adult life, Amber was held accountable for her choices without the option of family rescue. The results were initially painful, but ultimately transformative. Amber was forced to take a full-time position in retail management, a job she had previously considered beneath her. The steady income and structured work environment provided stability she had never experienced as an adult. More importantly, the job came with health insurance that covered counseling services. For the first time, Amber began addressing the underlying emotional issues that had driven her pattern of irresponsible behavior and manipulation. The counseling helped her understand how her actions had affected Emma and motivated her to become a more consistent and reliable parent. Emma's adjustment to the new living situation was challenging, but ultimately positive. Living with her grandparents in a smaller space taught her to be more organized and considerate of others' needs. She also benefited from the structure and consistency that my parents provided, something that had been lacking during the chaotic months in my house. 1 year after the eviction, Amber reached out to me directly for the first time since the legal proceedings. Her message was brief, but significant. "I understand now what I put you through. I am learning to take responsibility for my choices instead of expecting others to fix my problems. Can we talk?" The conversation that followed was honest and difficult. Amber acknowledged that she had never intended to move out of my house and admitted that she had conspired with our parents to manipulate me into leaving. She also recognized that her behavior had damaged not only our relationship, but Emma's sense of security and trust in adult consistency. "I thought I was being smart by getting you to support me," she said during that first reconciliation call. "But I see now that I was teaching Emma terrible lessons about taking advantage of people who love you. I want to be someone she can respect, not someone she learns manipulation from." The rebuilding of our relationship was slow and conditional. When Amber asked for help with job interview outfits and resume writing, I agreed to provide limited assistance with clear boundaries. I offered to take her shopping and help with her resume, but made it clear that my support was contingent on her continued progress toward independence. Today, 2 years after reclaiming my home, my life has achieved a balance and peace that I never thought possible during those 8 months of chaos and manipulation. My house is truly my sanctuary, decorated and maintained exactly as I choose, without the stress of unwanted house guests and boundary violations. The relationship with my family has been rebuilt on a foundation of mutual respect rather than obligation and guilt. My parents have learned to ask for my help rather than demand it, and they respect my right to say no without guilt trips or emotional manipulation. Amber has maintained steady employment for over a year now, the longest job tenure of her adult life. She has her own apartment and is learning to manage her finances responsibly with the help of a financial counselor. Most importantly, she is providing Emma with the stability and consistency that had been missing during years of crisis-driven living. The experience taught me that home is not just about the physical space where you live, but about having a place where your boundaries are respected and your contributions are valued. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for family members is to stop enabling their destructive behavior and force them to face the consequences of their choices. What would you have done if your family tried to force you out of your own home? Have you ever had to choose between family pressure and your own rights? Share your story in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like button if this story reminded you that you deserve respect, even from family members. Subscribe for more real-life stories about standing up for yourself when the people closest to you try to take advantage of your generosity. Please share this video with anyone who needs to hear that enabling bad behavior is not the same as showing love. Remember, you teach people how to treat you by what you are willing to accept, and sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is showing them what life looks like when they have to face their own consequences. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you the courage to protect what you have worked for, even when family members try to convince you that you owe them your success.